Uh, Good afternoon to all my dear friends from the God's own country, my seniors, my teachers, the President of the Indian Prosthodontic Society Head Office, Dr. Akshay Bhargav, my good friend, Dr. Rupesh, a man with multiple caps on his head, the Secretary of the Indian Prosthodontic Society, the Secretary of the Indian Prosthodontic Society, Kerala branch, Dr. Vinod Krishnan, a very good friend of mine, the President of the Indian Prosthodontic Society, Kerala State Branch, Dr. Cherian, the organizing chairman, so gracious enough to have invited me, Dr. George, my good friend, Dr. Julian, and many more, all the good friends of mine in the Kerala State Branch. Indeed, it's an honor and pleasure to me for having invited me to, to present the theme-based presentation of your conference, or the fourth IPS or fifth IPS conference here on technology-driven prosthodontics. Technology-driven prosthodontics. It's a very dear topic, and when Dr. Rupesh and Dr. Cherian called me and said that, would you be interested in giving it, I grabbed the opportunity to present myself here. Thank you once again, and without much ado, I will go into my presentation part of it. This is a wonderful theme, what the organizing committee has been provide, the empowering prosthodontics with technology. Before I start my presentation, I would start with my salutations to my guru, my teacher, my well-wisher, and my, who's shown the path to me, Dr. Chandrasekhar Nair. And I have a, I have a privilege of being the first postgraduate being trained under him outside the state of Kerala. Thank you, sir. I'm sure he's among the audience. A very good afternoon to you, sir. With the salutations and without much ado, I start my presentation here. Okay, this is an image probably in 1998, 99, when I finished my presentation. I had gone to Germany for a tour as a part of my corporate affiliation. This is a picture which captivated me into this wonderful world of digital dentistry, or digital prosthodontics, or digitization, whatever we call it as. And this is something, we have all studied, and this is something as a prosthodontist, young prosthodontist who just came out of the college. And it was, it was a pleasure to see me. And it was like goosebumps, and, thinking of seeing me saying that, okay, oh my God, you put a block of material and you get a teeth out. So this is what captivated to me this, and the whole journey started from there, which is, I would say, a pleasurable journey, and it has been continuing for me. Dentistry has changed exponentially from what it was when we were doing our analog days, largely as a result of newer technologies. Now let us look into traditional prosthodontics, or the definition of prosthodontics. What does prosthodontics say? Because prosthodontics definition has got a very good, very intimate connection with technology. That is why we are always in forefront of technology. In the technological forefront is prosthodontics. See, prosthodontics is an art and science of dentistry which deals with replacement of lost oral and facial structures. We've always been engineers. It's again an off-heard statement from our beloved secretary, Dr. Rupesh. He always says that he's always loves to call us as engineers, smile engineers, right, Dr. Rupesh? That is what most of your communications I see is that you do it. So it is an art and science of dentistry. So when it is an art and a science, it involves a lot more things. And when we are replacing a lost structure, we need to do a lot of work outside the patient's mouth, and then we require a lot of industrial part of it. See, traditional prosthodontics has always relied on the hand skills for fabrication, and all of us know, all the young postgraduates here and all the seniors here know that how much of hard work we need to go into doing when we are becoming a prosthodontist. And I remember, we had a grueling schedule when sir was there as our teachers, that we started at our work at 7 o'clock and it used to get at 9 o'clock. That is the grueling schedule. We do it, and all of us know that how much of hand work we had to do. And I remember doing a cast partial denture, like Ghazni Mohammad invading India so many times. I started my first cast partial dentures when I did almost 7 or 8 times, and the 9th time is when my castings came into reality and it could fit in the patient's mode. So it was relied mainly on the hand skills for fabrication. Whereas today, prosthodontics, no matter still the hand skills are required, but still today prosthodontics coupled with digital technologies have excelled both in the clinical and laboratory aspects. And that is what in the given time of 40 minutes, I will be able to give you a small brief inkling into different types of technology, because technology into prosthodontics is so deep, is so deeply rooted into it now, is every single step or every single work what we do in prosthodontics is so ingrained into technology today. Technology is something like a brother for us today in prosthodontics. So I see a lot many speakers doing that. Like a good friend of mine, Dr. Harsh, tomorrow morning, he will be talking more on the clinical aspects and how we do it and things like that. But what I'm here doing is that I'm giving you an overview of what the technology is, how the technology is ingrown into our field of prosthodontics and things like that. Now, what is this benefits of these technological advancements? Is it really a great thing that we are calling at that the technology is coming to the aid of this one? What are the benefits of it? When we look into the benefits, I would say that there are 4 benefits. When I'm looking at this science for a long time now, what are the 4? If I can, there are a lot of other benefits, but if you want to pinpoint 4 benefits, it is the communication and visualization, it is improved quality, that is precision and predictability, it is archiving of data and enhanced patient experience. Now let me delve into each one of these just for a few seconds, briefly for a few seconds. See, communication and visualization is the clarity. The clarity in communication is enhanced by a clear exchange between all stakeholders, the dentist, the lab technician, and patient. I'm sure all the participants present here will agree that one picture is equal to 1,000 words. So what this digitization helps us is that it brings us, all of us, into a same branch. See, because prosthodontics is not a one-man army. Prosthodontist is never me. Prosthodontist is always we. Because it is a combination of, it is like a wheel with multiple cogs, with multiple spokes. And the main spokes are the dentist, the dental technician or the dental technologist, and the patient. See, what we see, what the dental technician sees and what the patient sees, there may be a large communication gap. But with digital technology, what has happened is that it has brought us all in the same table. So when we talk a crown, the patient understands what a crown is. When we talk about aesthetics, patient understands what aesthetics is. And when we and patient have come to a conclusion of what aesthetics is, how the teeth should be there, we can precisely communicate to the lab technician. Lab technician will understand as to what is the expectation of it, and then it becomes much more easier to come into this. You can see this. This is a visualization of one of the screenshots of a intraoral scan which we have done. You can see a very simple picture. It's for an orthodontic purpose. It's not for a prosthodontic purpose, but still you can see all the views which is there, which is very communicative to everybody. What is going to be the treatment goal? How are we going to achieve this goal? What is the patient requirement? Everything is there. That is what it helps us to achieve this combination. Now, the second point is improved quality. It is precise and the precision, the predictability of it. Here you can see that we are able to visualize our margins very well. And here, all of you will agree is that one of the most important steps which the technician and the dentist, or the dentist and the technician, will have a lot of issues is that the margins. When we mark the margins, when we do a margin, and what is the margin we see is when we take an impression, we tell the margin something else, and when it comes out of it, sometimes it doesn't come out well. Whereas when we are doing a digital process, it is very clear. We can mark, as a clinician, we can mark the margins and then transfer the file to the technician. The technician knows, okay, this is the margin and this is how the anatomy should be there and this is what is there. And once the technician designs a crown, he can send it back to you. You as a clinician can approve it or can ask for, if you want any modifications to be done. It is very, very simple. So the communication is also very there, and it is precise and predictable because all the features is under our control. See, it is not like, okay, well, I want a cement spacer. In olden days, cement spacer is like, you apply a nail polish. You are not sure the technician has applied one coat of the spacer or 2 coats of spacer. Whereas here, it is so precise that I can fix up what is my cement spacer thickness is going to be. You can see that this is a representative image which shows that a very, very clear, precise cement spacer is there, and where I want the cement spacer, where I don't want the cement spacer, everything can be controlled by this parameter here. And when you can see the cross sections. This blue area is the minimum thickness of the material, because all material has got a minimal structural durability. So this blue is the minimum thickness, what is the material required, and you are sure that your material thickness is much more than what is required. So you know what is the requirement of it. You can check the occlusal points. You can see where your contacts are, how much of contacts are there. These are all the color charts which are available, which may be red, blue, green. Depending on each software, it will tell you what is the micron thickness. It may be 0 microns, or it may be 10 microns, or 25 microns, or 75 microns, or 100 microns. So you can choose what should be your contact. If you say, okay, if there is a red, that means to say the contact is too high. There is going to be high points, or the occlusal contacts or the proximal contacts are high. You will not be able to do the insertion properly. So you can arrange it, you can adjust it, and you can do this. And then you can see the clinical image, the design, and the outcome which comes out of it. And the outcome comes out is not a mood dependent. Here, the outcome is dependent on the machine. The machine will be so precise. It tells, okay, the machine has so many checks and features into it. It tells you, okay, you cannot just put one particular block and say, okay, this is what I have put, and you mill it. The machine will check, okay, Dr. Shiv Shankar is told, or the dental technician is told, this is a block of 14 millimeters by 14 millimeters. So the machine will go check every time it starts the milling. It will go and check whether it is 14 millimeters. I cannot put a 12 millimeter block and tell to mill a 14 millimeter. Then the sensor will say that, okay, my dear boss, you have not put a block which is at 14 millimeters, it is some other block, kindly change it. And then it will also tell you that the tool capacity, okay, all the tool has got a tool life. Everybody knows there's a tool life, but in our crown preparations, our crown cuttings, what do we do? Whether we are postgraduates or practitioners, what we do, we have a ball of spirit which is there, and we put all our burrs, and we do not know what is the life of the burr. The burr is worn out or not worn out, we are not bothered. Whereas when the machine, when it is there, it is so precise, it knows how many hours the tool is run, and the moment it senses the tool is not going to work, it will give you a message saying that it is not going to be there. It is not going to be there. It is going to go off. It is going to stop. It is not going to mill. So it will be very precise. Then only the precision, you can accept the precision and the predictability. That is why, there was a study in University of Columbia where they made, the same scan, they made 30 students to design crowns, and they milled it in the same milling machine. The fit of the restoration for all the 30 was the same. It did not change. The design might have changed based on the individual's perception of design, but the fit was the same. So what it shows is that the machine, regardless of what you put into it, the parameters are set, it will be the same. It will never change. So that is why it is precise and predictable when you are doing it. So there. The last point which I like is the archiving of data and enhanced the patient's experience. All of us know, because you know what, all of us know today, sorry. Yeah. All of us know the importance of archiving of data, because data is something which is going to create as data science. The data backup, data, what is the data science which is giving into it? It is called as the big data, because the future of dentistry or future of medicine is going, not future, it's already the present, is that it is the data which is giving us what do we require. See, in the pandemic like situation here, we have come out, we are commendable. The world has shown us so resilient, and it has come out of the vaccine within a year. In probably when it was the plague and encephalitis and things like that, it took so many years to get the vaccine to it. Whereas today, within 1 year, our scientists have been so commendable because we've got it. And what is the reason for this is because of the data. Because the amount of data which was present in the hands of all these scientists who developed the vaccine was so huge and so humongous, because from every area, digital data was being collected, enhanced, and then do it. That is what we call it as data mining. The data mining is going to be important. And when I come to the end of my lecture, I will tell you some more details about prosthodontics and how data is being used. And enhanced patient experience. The patient is so comfortable when you are doing a digital acquisition of data, he is so comfortable with it. See, this is a software which tells you, for example, I have done a scan. in the first, I've taken a scan in the first scan, and after 2 years, the patient comes, you can see that. So this is the precision and predictability what is coming to our science of prosthodontics. Now let us go with what is a digital workflow. Let us go delve a little deeper into it. What is this digital workflow? You know, you're all very familiar with the manual workflow of the work, wherein we take an impression, with the crown preparation, impression, pouring of models, doing die cutting, ditching, then you do waxing, then you do investing, then you do castings, then you do ceramic buildup, then you do polish glazing, and then it comes to cementation. Whereas when we come to the digital workflow, we have divided this workflow into 3 workflows. One is the acquisition of the image. The second is the designing of the crown, and then the production. So let us go a little deeper into it. I'm not going very deep into all these things because of the paucity of time, but a smaller proportions, what we do is, first is acquisition of the data. Because when we take in an analog way, what we do, we take an impression and then we pour the impression. So here, how do we acquire the data? In the manual way, what we do, we have either alginates or rubber-based materials, we take an impression. Whereas here, we have 2 ways of acquiring data. One is a direct acquisition, one is an indirect acquisition. In direct acquisition, we have an intraoral scanner, a magic wand, I would call it as. You put it in the patient's mouth once you do a prep, and then you can acquire it directly. The indirect method, which 90% of the Indian dentists are following for a long time now, is an indirect acquisition, where we take an analog impression and send it to our laboratory. The laboratory pours the model and then digitizes the model. He scans the model and then do it. So these are all the represented market. And here you can see a small video of the intraoral scan. How do we take a recorded intraoral scan? And for your kind information, this is my own teeth. I have recorded using the intraoral scanner. And I'm just, for the paucity of time, I'm just doing a quadrant scan. You can see a quadrant scan which is getting recorded. You can see that. You can move the you can move the stick, and then it records the scan. This is a maxillary teeth which are recorded. You can see in the small window is actual view, and you can see it is in the 3D image, which you see the bigger window is the representation of that in 3D view. And you can see it is today's technology is so that it is almost exact replica. The color, everything is in the same methodology what is there. Now we go to the lower scan. This acoustic data, what you're hearing, the acoustic sound, what you're hearing is a sound. If it stops for you, you don't have to see the screen and things like that. If the sound stops, that means to say that the scanning is stopped. Otherwise, if the sound is on, the scanning is on. It is an active window which is there, and the video technology, you can see that it is almost processing almost 30 to 40 frames per second. That means to say that it is taking an images of almost 30-40 images per second is what it's taking to reconstruct the 3D-dimensional data what you're seeing on the screen. And today the technology is so advanced that you can also do edentulous scans with certain people, like, you know what, for example, a complete dentures, when we are now talking about it, you can see the reconstructed, you can see the wear facet which is there in my teeth, everything can be seen. And then you can record the bite. The bite can be recorded with your, you know what, your centric bite or your maximum intercuspation, whatever bite, you can see the bite which is recording. And once you record the bite, the software will automatically detect and it will stop the scan once you have done the bite. You can see the sound when it creates that the data is done. So it processes the data and the data is ready. You can check the data. You can see the data is ready, and then you can check all the data, and then you can go ahead. And this is usually stored in a format called as an STL format or PLY or an OBJ. If you PLY and OBJ formats are formats which are color formats, and STL is the grayscale format which is there. You can see the scans which are there. Now, when we are looking at model acquisition or the indirect method, we pour up the model, and this is a representative. This is an impression scan or a model scan, whichever is there. You can see the scan. It has got two cameras which scans into it. So you can see the scan, how it has occurred. It takes images here also. It takes around 10 to 15 frames a second is what these cameras take. And the camera will be either 3 megapixel, 5 megapixel cameras which are there, which has got a lot of precision into it. You need to calibrate these scanners. So you can see the scan which is there. This is what it does. It is a stripe light technology which is there, and the scans are occurring there. Now, once your scan is done, you got a data. The data is stored. Now you need to design it. The next part of your digital process is going to be the design, what we call it as CAD. CAD is computer aided designing. So you need to get into the data. And once you start the data, you have to enter all these details when you're doing. See, the software will show you what you want to do. You need to tell the software very clearly as to what is your requirement. You want to do a crown, you want to do a bridge, you want to do a bar, or you want to do a complete denture. Everything can be done, a partial denture, a complete denture, everything can be done here. So you need to choose. Once you choose what is it you want, then it goes to the material, because each one has got a default settings of material science. So you have to say, okay, I'm going to do a 3D printing of the data, or I'm going to do a milling of the data. And what am I going to do? I'm going to use zirconia, I'm going to use wax, or I'm going to do laser sintering. You can fix up all the things, and you can see that it is what the data creates. Once you've created the data, then you import the data into the software. This is another way of doing it. You can see this is what is the proposal called as. Now you import the data. The moment you import the data, the first thing what you need to do is you need to select the margins, because you need to do where you need to tell the software, okay, this is where my crown has to be there. And you can see this is the margin where I have touched is where this margin is. You can see that a nice rounded margins is what I have, what is prepared in this case. And you can see the data which is there. You can keep on moving this cursor wherever you want to see how the margin is there. Now you can see the margin is marked and the data has been, you can see it in all 360 degrees, how the data can be seen into this procedure. And once the data is done here, what you need is that you need to put the next thing what we do is we apply a spacer. You can see a spacer here. There is a golden spacer here and there is a green spacer here. This is the margin. The green space is the space where there is no spacer provided here. It is 0. And you can fix it from up to 0 to 1 millimeter, you know what, for the cement spacer. And here, if you see the yellow color, the golden color is the gap is almost 80 microns is what we have given here, so that the milling technology takes place. So we are kept here. Once your spacing is done, then your design, you can prepare your design. You can see your design and you can also see it in cross section. As I told you, this is a minimum thickness of the material what we have selected. And this small white line is your cement spacer. You can see that in 1 millimeter from the margin, I have not given a spacer here. So you can see that it is closely attached to the tooth. Whereas from here, there is a spacer which is there, which is clearly shown. And this red line is the minimum thickness of the material what is there. And yellow is the final shape of the tooth is what we want. You can see the cross sections here. You can see the occlusion cross section. You can adjust it. You can pull your cursor, pull everything, bring a perfect occlusion. You want a perfect occlusion with the gliding. And if you have an articulator module into it, semi-adjustable articulator module into which I will talk to a little later. And I think today afternoon or tomorrow also there is a speaker who's talking on virtual articulators. It is good. I will not go in deep into it because of the time. And you can see a proposal which is being come out of it. It is called as a proposal, what we call. You can check it out and then you can see. Now, when we talk about the bridges, in the bridges, when we are doing a wax pattern in manual technique, we do not understand what is a connector, because we just join these two using wax and then you say, okay, we have connected. Whereas in CAD/CAM, we need to fix up a connector. You must have seen that. What is the connector thickness? You can say what type of connector you require. You require a square shape, you require a round shape, a half pier, a bigger pier. or any shape which you want into it. And then what is the minimum thickness of the connector which is there. In posteriors, usually 9 to 12 millimeters is what we recommend. In anteriors, it is recommended as 9 millimeters square. So you are very sure that it is connected onto it. This is how you can reduce your connectors here. Now coming to the next part of it is your partial dentures. I'm really sorry that I have to skip a little bit here and there, because I wanted to cover a lot of things in the given time. Okay, so this is a partial denture situation where we do design a cast partial denture. You can see a tooth preparation is done. This is not an intraoral scan. This is a model scan which we have done here. You can see the rest preparation this doctor has done here. You can see the rest seat preparations. All the rest seat preparations have been done. And once it is imported into the software, the first thing what we encounter is called as the, what we do in a manual technique is that we do a surveying, right? All of us know that we do a surveying. We put it on a surveying table and then we do a surveying. In the software also, we do the same thing. What we say, okay, we need to do a surveying. So what we do is we put it on the software and tell this is the red toggle wing there, how much of surveying we can do. You can increase or decrease in all the directions which you see by 5 degrees, 3 degrees, you can see. And this is the amount of undercut which is present, you can see. If it is yellow, it is 0 millimeters, 0.25 millimeters is orange, and light red is 0.5 millimeters, and dark red is, or maroon is 0.75 millimeters. And here, see, you can see that from the right side, from the left side, and from the occlusal side, you can see how much of undercut is present. And you can orient this or you can modify it like how you do in your surveying to get the preferred undercut part of it. Once your undercut is done, we have to do a wax block out. Here, you can see that it is blocked out. It is an automatic block out which is done there. You can see the block out which is done. Then once the block out is done, we go step by step here. You can see the steps here, which has already been there in the software. You can interchange the steps, but this is the line which has been drawn. So it is, you can see a minor connector which has been there, which is the saddle part of it. Once you do a saddle, you can do a major connector. You can see the major connector with the anterior-posterior palatal strap with the occlusal rests. Then your clasps can be added, your circumferential clasp and I-bar clasps have been added. And then once you finalize it, you can see the stippling of the wax which is coming in the major connector. And these are support bars, because what is this process I'm going to do is I'm going to go to do a printing directly, whether it's metal printing or it is going to be plastic printing. Both the printings, when it is there, it needs to support. Otherwise, what happens is, because this is a very thin area, chances of it getting warped is more. That is why we give this support space which is there in the part of it. This is a clinical case which we have done. You can see a clinical case which is there. This is the scan. This is the design anterior-posterior palatal strap. And this is the castings which we have done. This is long back before the metal printing was coming to our laboratory. We've done the castings into it and checked the fitting of the patient's mouth, which is there. Now coming to the holy grail of prosthodontics is complete dentures. This is today, as I told you, today the technology has grown that we can do an intraoral scan, and then we can do a preliminary intraoral scan, and then we can do it. But here we have done a master cast. We have scanned here. You can see the articulation which is there, because occlusal rim has also been scanned. And then you can put it onto the articulator of your choice, fix all your records which you have done an intraoral Gothic arch tracing or an extraoral Gothic arch tracing. You can fix all the details onto the articulator when you're looking at the semi-adjustable articulator module. And then you can arrange the teeth, and with a one click of the button, it becomes a balanced occlusion which is there. You can see the occlusion which is being developed here, which can be done, right? So this is as far as the design is concerned. Once the design is done, you need to save it as a file in a format called as an STL file, because STL file is a file which is read by the machine. The milling machine has to understand what this file is. So it is the most common type of open format which is there, which is read by most of the open-ended milling systems. Now, once the design file is ready, we need to produce it, right? We need to, like, for example, once the wax pattern is done, we do a casting. Once we do a casting, we have to finish. So here we go ahead with the production of it, and production is called as a CAM. CAM is computer-aided machining, which is there, which is production. Now, there are two ways of producing a prosthesis in the present day scenario. One is the milling, which is a subtractive manufacturing, which is an age-old technique where we put a chunk of material, a block of material, and the block mills out. It's like, you know what, when we are doing our second year or first year whichever time of studies we have done in our first BDS or MDS, first BDS or second BDS, we've been done anatomical carving. What we did, we took a wax block and then we shared out wax to make a tooth. So that is subtractive manufacturing. Whereas today, the most used technique is the additive manufacturing, which is printing, where we do layer by layer. When we come to post-graduation, when we do our wax ups, what do? Is we do drop by drop wax and then we build up the anatomy of the tooth. So that is why two different techniques in manufacturing is there. One is a milling, the subtractive manufacturing, and the additive manufacturing. Let us look into both the techniques which is there. You can see this is what is called as the subtractive manufacturing, wherein a block of zirconia disc is put into it, and there's a tool which is there and which mills out a crown for us. And once the milling is done, it looks into the crown, which is going to be looking like this. Once it is done, it is a zirconia material which need to be hardened there. Now, how does this machine mill? See, the machine is milling using called as a tool path. We need to generate a tool path and we need to tell the machine, because see, machine is a square machine. It mills out a block. For it, you mill a block or you mill a tooth. The machine doesn't understand that. Machine understands only a machine language, and the machine language is called as the tool path. And the tool path is that we generate a template saying that, okay, my rough milling is going to be done by my 2 mm tool, and my fine milling is going to be done by 1 mm tool, and my occlusal carving is going to be done by a 0.6 mm tool. It is like when you're doing a crown preparation, you want a chamfer margin, you need to do a chamfer, you need to do a rounded burr. If you want a shoulder margin, you need to do a flat-head burr. So this is what it does for when we are doing a milling. Now you can see a video. It's just a commercial video. You can see such beautiful music for our ears. Yeah, for me as a technologist, this is music for me as a Mozart. Now, when we look into additive manufacturing, this is what additive manufacturing represents. See, now what we do is we build layer by layer. You can see that a structure is being built layer by layer, a resin or a ceramic or whatever you think about it, it goes layer by layer, and then that is how a technology is built. This is another technology of doing 3D printing. And when it comes to 3D printing, I should really mention in medical 3D printing and technology being used, I think Kerala is one of the most forward states which has been using the 3D printing technology and 3D technology, wherein in Amrita Institute of Medical Science, they have a separate department. And I see good interaction with these people, and many of the medical forums or the medical and dental forums where I also present my presentation. There is a good friend of mine, Dr. Mahesh Kapniyal. I'm sorry if I've mentioned his name in a wrong way. He is one of the pioneers in doing digital technology in the medical field, in the field of cardiac surgery. He's into not only printing, he's into AR and VR and all those structure into it. Now, when we come to implantology, implantology is not far away. Implantology is also into this digital technology, what we talk about. A protocol for a successful implant is that one demonstrates the functional integration. It is not only the osseointegration, but we are talking about functional integration today. If we need to do a functional integration, we need a guided path. And for me, for a general person, a GPS is just a tracking location. For me, a GPS is guided prosthetics and surgery. So when we talk about today, implantology becoming more and more prosthetically driven. There was once upon a time, no offense meant to my surgeon friends. Once upon a time, it was entirely a surgical skill-based skill. Whereas today, it is almost, I can say, in the world, 99% of the places, it is driven by the prosthodontist, or the prosthetically driven implantology is being practiced. And that is how we are functionally integrating implants, because implants is, anything which is going to be restored is to restore the lost art and for the viable for us. And that is how we are going to look into how the dentists are trained. And I have a couple of quotes from the from the medical technologists and medical field. I recently met one of the pioneers in medical colleges. He was telling it's a crime, Dr. Shiv Shankar, to allow the patients to put their hand into the patient's mouth or patient's thing without actually realizing or facing what it is. So virtual reality and augmented reality is going to be where how the training and technology is going to be there. Of course, teledentistry, all of us, in a part where when we call up our patients, we've been doing it. And again, a very important aspect of dentistry is going to be regenerative dentistry, where we're talking about biosketching, bioprinting, we're talking about stem cells. We're talking about a lot more things when we are talking about it, augmenting stem cells, creating a shell, creating a scaffold for it, and then we inject the stem cells onto it so that we can grow a part. For example, a ear, a nose, whatever part we're going to do, we can grow it on a half in a petri dish, and then we can transplant into the patient's ears or the patient's body, and then we can see that. So that grafting technology will become, we can reduce it. For example, when we have a maxillectomy or a mandibulectomy there, what we are doing is we are cutting the fibula, cutting this one, and then we are doing it. Probably a day will come when we are talking about regenerative medicine, not the titanium. We are doing, of course, with titanium now. We can regenerate the bone using active osteoblasts and then doing it. Probably that is what is the future going to be there when this do it. Digital technology will enable the technicians and dentists to produce restorations of unparalleled accuracy and durability. The person behind the technologies, my friend, is more important than the technology itself. See, we don't want to get overwhelmed by the technology. Technology has always been there, but the person who sits behind this technology is very important. That is you and me are the people who have to be there. So our basic knowledge, basic tenets of dentistry is very important if we need to become a good digital guy. It is not that people think, okay, there is going to be digital technology here, so I don't have to bother about doing my basics. The technology is going to do. Technology is not going to do anything. I always tell in all my presentations is that computer is an idiot box. Garbage in, garbage out. You put honey in, you'll get sweet. You put some garbage, only garbage will come out on you. So it is always technology is there. Technology is a boon or bane. That is up to us to discuss on it. But it is always a boon when we have the knowledge to work on this technology. Digitization or technological assistance is not about replacing experienced dentists or technicians. It is about allowing experienced dentists or technicians to become more efficient. Please keep in mind, all the young postgraduates here is that don't think technology is going to, is going to take over you. You're going to be just a joystick people. Dentistry is a very vibrant field. It is my pet subject. Dentistry is always a vibrant field. Prosthodontics is a very vibrant field, my friends. You have a lot of scope in this field. You do not have to worry, what am I going to do after I may pass out? Because what we were doing is in the Middle Ages, we were only concentrating or thinking about, once I finish my post-graduation, I'm going to get into teaching college. Teaching college was the only thing. So after that, when all teaching colleges filled up, we thought, oh my God, all scope of dentistry is lost. Dentistry is gone. That is gone. No. If you are innovative enough, if you enable technology into it, imagination is your limit, my dear friends. And then I will leave you with this small video. You can just see, I think the audio is visible. Yeah, so this is what is my starting video to it. Thank you so much once again. And before I forget, thank you, Dr. Ravichandran. Sorry, I missed thanking you when I started my presentation. Thank you so much, Chairperson Dr. Ravichandran, sir. Thank you so much. I hope I did not take out too much of your time and I was able to deliver whatever is required from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. That was the quintessential speaker, Dr. M. Shivashankar himself, teaching us, giving us tessellations of knowledge on digital prosthodontics. Now over to Dr. Ravichandran, sir. Sir, the session is all yours for the comments and questions.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
I can hear you, sir.
Yeah, there was some technical problem earlier. I'm very sorry for that. And thank you, sir, for the immense information which you have shared with us and the budding prosthodontists. And you said how technology makes the difference in the precision of our prosthetic work as in the clinic as well as in the lab. And we also have told us about the future of dentistry, that is the
artificial
intelligence, augmented reality, and teledentistry, regenerative dentistry. And we are looking forward to hearing you later on regarding some of these topics at least. And because of the technical imperfections, I couldn't see the substance which has been forwarded. And I just call upon Dr. Cherian whether any questions have been forwarded to you to clarification, especially with that.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ravi. Shiva sir, we have a few questions from the audience.
Yes, sir, please, sir. I will definitely, sir.
Yeah, they want to know your thoughts about long span scanning. How are there any pitfalls?
Long span scannings are possible, sir, but small technical changes have to be done. How the long scan scannings have to be done, because what happens is this computer, when the scanning is done, it takes images, and images are stitched and done. So when you're doing your long span scanning, you need to see that more than 50%. See, normally when we do a scan, we say, okay, you 30% of the previous scan, and then the next you go to the next frame. When you're doing a long span scans, I would suggest that 60 to 70% of the scan is kept in the previous image, and then you go. It will take a little longer time for you to do longer spans. And with the present day technology which is available with most of these scanning companies, the algorithms of these scanning technologies have improved tremendously. See, just imagine today there are some companies wherein we can do a edentulous scan. Not all scanners can do, but there are some scan companies which are doing edentulous scanning. So that means to say that the algorithms are so good that the stitching will happen. So long span bridges are possible, but there are some small technical changes which you need to bring in when you are doing a scanning. It is possible. You are able to do a full arch scan.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Similarly, has technology been able to overcome hypersalivation?
No, sir. Still, I think with not so much. With the like how we do our general impression taking, we need to see that the area is dry. I don't mean that it is like doing a restoration, it needs to be totally dry, but at least there it should be like how we do a rubber base impression. We need to see that there is not too much of saliva in that place.
Thank you, sir. Some people want to know about the digital jaw relation techniques, and just a brief on how it's done.
See, digital jaw relations in the sense for edentulous or for dentulous, we just take a teeth scan and we do it. For edentulous, what we normally do is that there is no scan it is not done intraorally. We don't do a edentulous scan to do a jaw relation scan. What normally we do is, if you know the intraoral tracing technique, all the companies at present, what they are doing is that they ask you to do a functional impression with the bite with an intraoral tracer. Take it out like what we do it in BPS denture. If you are familiar with the BPS denture concept, what we do is we do a jaw relation and the secondary impression in the same step, and then we take it out and then we scan the relationship.
Yes, thank you, sir.
There are special trays which are available for it.
Okay. So just one more question.
Yes, sir.
Are there any 3D bioprinting facilities right now in India?
Yes, sir. There are a lot of facilities, sir. There are
Okay.
a lot of concerns. I think there are government institutes and private institutes which are doing a lot work on 3D printing, bioprinting. I think Kerala also, if I'm not wrong, in Cochin there is 1 or 2 centers, sir.
Okay, sir. I'm not sure about that.
No,
Anyway.
it is there, sir. It is there. There are a lot of, now at least 8 to 10 concerns are available in India who are doing bioprinting, sir.
Okay, sir. Anyway, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Shiv, Rupesh here.
Yes, brother.
Yeah, I know. I like that classic statement you said that technology is your brother. So I think that's a fantastic statement that you made. We cannot world now, without technology. Forget about the prosthodontics in our daily lives. So, where do you think? Just one question for you. Where do you think this technology is going to go from now? Already it is science fiction for most of us. So, what do you think? Where do you think is the next step? Where do you think this is?
The next step is 3 steps. 3 important steps is AI, VR, machine learning. What is going to happen is that there's a lot of going to be artificial intelligence which is going to get into this field of dentistry or the medicine, where you upload a picture and then you probably within 15-20 minutes what is the lesion, what is the thing, and what is the treatment plan you require. Everything comes out of it because of the data mining which is present there. Next is augmented reality and virtual reality is going to take over the whole of education field. It's already in some of the universities abroad. But I think in India also this will take, because see, it is because all of us in the education field are knowing that again and again we are facing the same thing. And as Dr. Anil Matthew in his oration lecture talked about it, is that we need to look into problem-based learning. Problem-based learning is what we have been thinking. And with digital technologies, problem-based learning becomes a very, very very easier to do things, because we can, when we are doing an examination for a student, we can give him in virtual reality, we can give a clinical situation and say, boss, this is a clinical situation and how are you going to handle this? And he can handle it in virtual reality, because he can switch from periodontics to orthodontics to prosthodontics, everything he can switch, and then he can give us a perfect treatment plan, how it is done using this. So I feel that artificial intelligence, machine learning is going to become the big future in the medical, in the patient education part of it, and augmented reality and virtual reality in our teaching sector. I think all of us are, in the next few years, all of us are staring at doing a lot of teaching, learning methodologies using AR and VR. Already many universities like University of Hong Kong, University of Columbia, University of Connecticut, or some other universities which are already big in using AR and VR in their field.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Moving on, I request Dr. R. Ravichandran to award the certificate to Dr. Shiva Shankar for presenting the keynote lecture at IPSON V 2021.